This session will be opened by Deputy Pearse Doherty, so I'd invite Pearse to the stage.
The Southern Irish economy is still in crisis. Unemployment now stands at 449,600 people and has risen steadily since Fine Gael and Labour took office. The domestic economy is still in recession. Prices are rising, wages are falling, and hundreds of thousands of families are struggling to cope. They're struggling to cope with mortgages, rent, household bills, education and health costs, and now even the crippling government charges that are being introduced and announced on a monthly basis. Meanwhile, like their predecessors, Fine Gael and Labour continue to starve the domestic economy of much-needed resources while pumping billions of your money into toxic banks. In the past 3 years, €20 billion has been wrenched from the economy in the form of cuts to public sector wages and services and increased taxes on low and middle income earners. And during the same period, more than €40 billion has been thrown into the banks to fill the hole created by toxic private sector debt. And I urge you, there is more to come. Fine Gael and Labour are committed to increasing taxes and cutting spending, totalling €9.5 billion over the next 3 years, including €4 billion in this December's budget. Ac níl seachtain bí na icin banc éireanna chud airgid céinní cirí na héireann leis na sealmhairí bannaí. Seo na sealmhairí bannaí céireanna a thug iasachtaí móra don na banc seo nar bhíon buamán. Ar an dara leid a mí na saona ici banc Anglo-éireanna €600 million le sealmhair bannaí a bhain. So while they promise us cuts and more austerity measures, we are mindful that not a week goes by when an Irish bank, using money paid from the Irish taxpayer, pays off bondholders that provided speculative loans to the Irish banks during the boom. On November the 2nd, Anglo-Irish Bank will pay a €700 million bond to a single unsecured, unguaranteed senior bondholder. So just put that in perspective. What does that mean? A quarter of that money would balance the budget of every hospital across the state for the first 6 months of this year. And worse still, in April of next year, and every year for the next decade, successive Irish governments will hand over €3.1 billion of your money to Anglo-Irish Bank to pay off their bondholders and banks that lent recklessly to it. And the government tell us that they have no choice. They tell us that the country is broke. They tell us that they must implement the austerity measures in the EU-IMF deal. Well, they're telling us lies. Political leadership is all about choices, and Sinn Fein is saying that we would choose a different direction to that of Fianna Fáil, of Fine Gael and Labour, a direction to get Ireland back to work and on the road of social and economic recovery. Sinn Féin's #1 priority would be to create jobs and to get people back to work. We would focus on job retention and job creation and helping small and medium-sized enterprise to keep their staff and to grow their business to employ more. We would invest in labour-intensive capital infrastructure projects to develop the country's infrastructure needs and ensuring long-term social and economic benefits. And we would also create a youth jobs fund to create 20,000 jobs for the under-25s in order to stem the growing tide of immigration. Immigration has been our past. We cannot allow it to be our future. Sinn Féin also believes that families on low and middle incomes also deserve a stimulus. So we would abolish the universal social charge and we would introduce tax-refundable tax credits for over 240,000 people, alleviating some of the pressure on struggling families and boosting spending in the local economy. We would also reform the taxation system, making it fairer, while ensuring that there was sufficient funds to reduce the deficit and invest in jobs and our services. Our proposals to introduce a wealth tax is just one of a number of measures that we would bring in to ensure that those most able to pay make their rightful contribution to the recovery. With respect to the banks, Sinn Féin will continue to argue against the use of taxpayers' money to pay off private sector banking debts. Not a single cent more should be used to bail out the banks. Our critics say that our proposals lack credibility. They tell us that we can't afford them. They tell us that the most pressing issue is to reduce the deficit and the national debt, and that this can only be done by more austerity heaped on the Irish people. Well, Sinn Féin disagrees. You cannot cut your way out of this recession, and there is money available in the National Pension Reserve Fund even after all of the bailouts. This money must be used to create jobs. This money must be used to assist hard-pressed families. This money must be used to stimulate the economy back to positive growth. There are always choices in politics. There are always alternatives to austerity and to bank bailouts. And Sinn Féin has those alternatives. The potential is there. What we now need is a strategic plan to get us there, and I intend to put that plan in place. Gur Maigah.